Hello, welcome to today's strengthen and stretch yoga practice. I made a poll in this group last week and strengthening and stretching was the #1 requested type of yoga. So we are going to do a 20-minute strengthen and stretch today. Make sure you're listening to your body, modify and pause wherever you need to. So we're going to go ahead and come first today into cat-cow stretch. And we'll connect with our breath from cat-cow. So come onto your hands and knees. You can put a blanket underneath your knees for additional support if you would like. Now make sure your hips are in line over your knees, your shoulders are over your wrists, your fingers are spread wide. We're going to go ahead and take an inhale, and as we inhale, we'll draw the chest forward. Lift the chin, drop the belly. And as we exhale, we'll pull the belly up into the spine, arching the back, rounding the shoulders forward, dropping the head. On an inhale, pull the chest forward, drop the belly, lift the chin. And on an exhale, lifting that belly button up into the spine to create an arch, rounding your shoulders and dropping your head. If you'd like to add a strengthening component to this first movement of cat-cow, you can tuck your toes and hover your knees about 1 inch off the ground to strengthen as we stretch and warm up our spine. Continue to connect the breath to the movement, inhaling as we draw the chest forward and exhaling to round. Let's do 2 more. Good. Come back to neutral spine, bring your big toes together, knees wide, hinge back in the hips, walk your fingertips forward to child's pose. You're welcome to put a blanket underneath your knees, behind your knees. You're also welcome to put a block underneath your forehead or your chest. Your hands can be alongside your legs if it hurts your shoulders to have your hands out in front of you. If your hands are out in front, go ahead and walk your fingertips forward, lifting your forearms up off the mat and pulling the upper arm in toward your ears. Pressing through all 10 of your fingers. Take a couple breaths here in extended child's pose. And we'll move now into our first downward facing dog, tucking the toes, lifting the hips up and back, keeping your knees bent for this first one. Press through all 10 of your fingers. Pull up out of your arms so you're not collapsing. Pull up out of your arms, pull that upper inner part of your arm in towards your ears like we did in extended child's pose, and pull your hips up and back. Take a couple breaths here. And we'll gently pedal the feet, straightening one leg at a time. Waking up, stretching our calves gently. Good. Bring both legs back to bend. Downward dog is a wonderful pose for strengthening and stretching. So if we want to start moving the legs toward straight, with the hips continuing to pull up and back and your knees bent, come up onto the balls of your feet as high as you can. Pull your quads up towards your hips. Pull your hips up and back, and then straighten your legs as much as you can and let the heels fall toward the mat. We're going to move into a plank flow. So on an inhale, pull the chest and the shoulders forward so that your shoulders are over your wrists. You're welcome to drop down to your knees. If you're pregnant, go ahead and drop down to your knees, or if you would just prefer this modification. And then on an exhale, we'll press back into downward facing dog. So moving forward on the inhale, pulling your hips up and back on the exhale. Feel free to rest in child's pose anytime you'd like during this. Continue to link your breath to your movement. Inhaling to move forward, exhaling to pull back. Good. And let's move through one more. And we'll take a brief pause back in child's pose. So drop your knees, hinge back in your hips. This time you can allow your arms to rest. Take a couple breaths here before we move back into downward dog. Good. Before we push into dog, if you have blocks nearby, you can grab those. You may or may not need them, but put them up toward the top of your mat in case you do. And we'll go ahead and move forward, tucking the toes, pressing back into downward facing dog. And we're going to prepare to move into lizard pose. So go ahead and bring your feet together. Extend the right foot straight back behind you. And then exhale, bring the leg forward and put it on the side of your right hand. So it should be outside both of your feet. Now you might want to stay here up on your hands. You might want to take your blocks, put one on the inside of your right foot, one to the left, and then drop down onto your forearms on the blocks. Or if you're flexible enough, you can allow your forearms to go all the way down onto the mat. You're also welcome to drop the back knee. If the leg is straight behind you, pull that thigh bone up toward the ceiling, keeping that leg nice and straight. Press through the right foot and pull your knee, your right knee, toward your right shoulder. Don't let it collapse out to the side. And breathe here in lizard pose. Good. If you're using blocks, you can move them just a little bit. To step your right foot back into downward facing dog with your feet together. And this time we'll extend the left foot straight back and bring it forward and place it on the left side of your left hand. And again, you're welcome to stay here. You're welcome to take your blocks and put your forearms down on the blocks, or to allow your forearms to go all the way down to the mat. You're also welcome to drop that right knee. Keep the left knee hugging into your left shoulder so that it's not flaring out to the side. If your right leg is straight, pull that thigh bone up toward the ceiling to make a nice straight line. And we'll take a couple breaths on this left side. Good. You can move the blocks if you're using them. Step back into downward facing dog. One breath. And then we'll walk the feet to the hands. You can go ahead and bend your knees and allow your chest to rest on your thighs. Your feet can be wider apart or closer together. Go ahead and shake your head yes and no for a moment. Release any tension in your neck. If you'd like, you can hold on to your elbows. And begin to bring the weight ever so slightly forward so that your heels aren't too heavy. If you'd like to work your legs towards straight, You can again pull those quadriceps up toward your hips, which releases your hamstrings and begin to straighten your legs. As you straighten your legs, don't let your hips fall back. Keep the weight forward in your toes. If you need to drop your hands to the mat to keep yourself from toppling forward, you're welcome to do that. Don't let your toes grip too tightly to the mat, even though the weight is pulled forward. Let your toes relax. Go ahead and bend your legs, bring your hands to your hips, and leading with the chest, go ahead and come to stand. Very good. All right. We're going to go ahead and move into a crescent lunge or a high lunge. So facing the front of your mat, feet shoulder width apart, hands on your hips. We're going to step back with the left foot, about 3 feet or so. Stay up on the back ball of your left toe. Pull your left hip forward. Keep your belly pulled back away from your right thigh so we're not collapsing forward. And let your tailbone point toward the ground. That back leg can be bent. Or if you feel okay in your lower back, then you can keep your tailbone pulling toward the ground. You can begin to straighten that back leg. You can bring your right knee in alignment with your right ankle. And if you'd like to float your hands up overhead, keeping your shoulders pressing down. If you feel this in your shoulders, you can bend your arms a little bit. Keep that left hip hugging forward. Take a couple breaths here. Good. Bring your hands to your hips. Step back to the front of the mat, and we'll step back with the right foot. Keeping your feet on railroad tracks rather than a tightrope, staying up on the balls of your right foot, keeping that right hip hugging forward and pulling your lower belly away from your left thigh. Make sure your left knee is in line with your left ankle. That back leg can be straight as long as your tailbone is pointing toward the ground, and you're welcome to float your arms up overhead if you'd like. And bring your feet together. Very good. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into a wide-legged forward fold. Bring your feet as wide apart as you're comfortable with. They can be as wide as your hands, or they can be a little bit more narrow. If you can't make it all the way down to the ground, you can put blocks underneath you so that you can rest your hands on blocks. Engage these front thighs, pulling them up towards your hips. Put your hands on your hips, lead with the chest, and then fold forward as far as you can with a flat back. And when you can't go forward with a flat back any further, you can round forward. And just like in the other forward fold, we're going to keep the weight pulling forward so that your toes are ever so slightly heavier than your heels. Keep your heels on the ground though. Keep those quadriceps engaged, pulling those thighs up towards your hips. That allows your hamstrings to release and to allow you to go deeper into the stretch. Lift your arches, press down through both feet. Allow your belly and your back to soften. Again, you can shake your head yes and no. And keep the breath flowing. Good. Bring your hands back to your hips. You can bend your knees a little bit and come to stand. Very good. All right. Stepping back toward the back of your mat. If you'd like to grab a block to sit on for our low squat, you're welcome to do that. We're going to bring the hands together at the chest. Bring your feet about as wide as your mat, ever so slightly turned out, and then go ahead and squat down as low as you can. Knees out to the side. If you'd like to sit up on a block, you're more than welcome to do that, or onto a chair even. You can use your elbows if you're able to press your legs out to the side and make sure your back is nice and straight. If you'd like a little bit of an extra strength challenge, go ahead and lift your hips a couple inches off away from your heels. You can feel your quadriceps engage even as we continue to stretch. Keep the breath flowing smoothly in and out. Good. And we'll go ahead and come all the way down to a seated position. You're going to move into staff pose. You're welcome to sit up onto a blanket. You want to keep your spine nice and long. If it's rounding, you definitely want to sit up on a folded blanket. Your knees can be a little bit bent if they need to be. That's completely fine. Press your hands into the ground, toes facing your feet, pulling your your fingers facing your feet, toes pulling towards your forehead, core engaged. Again, you're welcome to bend your legs if you need to. Press through the hands without allowing the shoulders to come up. So keep space between your ears and your shoulders. Again, pull that quadricep muscle up towards your thigh, pressing down into the ground with your legs. And if you happen to be pregnant, stay right here. If not, we're going to move into a seated forward bend. So again, you're welcome to bend your knees if you need to. You can gently walk your hands forward, trying to keep length through your spine. If you can reach your toes, you can grab hold of them either on the outsides or up on top, trying to keep as much length through your spine as you can. Again, if you need to bend your knees a little bit, you're welcome to. You might find that after a few breaths here, you can work them a little bit closer to straight. Make sure you're hinging at the hips. You should feel your sitting bones connecting with the ground. And take a few deep breaths here. Seated forward bend. And so many of these yoga poses, we're always trying to keep the spine as long as possible. We want to protect our backs, especially our lower backs, for the long run. Good, and release. All right, we're gonna go into an incline plane. You're welcome to bend your legs or keep them straight. Point your fingers back toward the wall behind you. Press down through your heels and the palms of your hands, and lift your hips up off the ground while you widen at the chest. And you're welcome to bend your knees for this or keep them straight. Chest opener and a strengthener. Good. Go ahead and lower. We're going to do a quick abdominal exercise before we rest for a minute. If you're pregnant, go ahead and turn over and do a plank on your knees. Otherwise, we're going to move into boat pose. So you're welcome to hold on to the back of your legs. You can keep both legs down or lift them up. Again, keeping your spine nice and long, not letting it round. You can let go of your legs. You can work your legs towards straight if you can, or you can keep them bent. The most important thing here is the nice, long, straight spine. Pulling the crown of your head up toward the wall behind you. And breathing. same. We'll slowly lower one vertebrae at a time down to the ground. We'll do a quick and gentle spinal twist, just letting your legs move from side to side with your legs bent. And then go ahead and find a resting pose that is comfortable for you. If you're pregnant, I recommend lying on your left side. If you're feeling any pain in your back, you can bring your knees together with your legs bent, or you're welcome to extend your legs straight and turn your palms up, bringing your shoulders together. Just stay here for a minute or so. If you have more time today, I recommend that you stay here for at least 5 minutes. Allowing your body to rest under the ground beneath you. Allowing your breathing to be slow and steady. You're always welcome to keep your eyes open or closed for these resting times, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And if you're ready to come out of the pose, you can gently wiggle your fingers and your toes, slowly opening your eyes, rolling onto your side, and coming up to a seated position. Thank you so much for joining me for this strength and stretch yoga practice today. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to practicing again with you soon.